Welcome to week 1 in review. So what did we cover? Well, we covered the first 2 chapters of the book. You hopefully got into the groove and understand how everything is going to work. Usually the first week's the hardest. A lot more things, trying to figure out what we're doing, what I want, compared to what you've had in the past. So I know it takes a little bit of time. So hopefully you got everything posted. Remember, each week you should have had this week you had an introduction you should have done. You had 2 discussion questions and a weekly paper, a quiz, and a journal. Yes, it's a lot of work, but it's an 8-week class, so we still have to cover a lot of different things. So basically, chapter 1 was just an overview of the framework. What is access control? What is the ability of it? What are we trying to do? As I said, we're going to be looking at what policies do we have in place that have been able to help us? What are the procedures that people have to follow? And what tools have we given them? We're looking at possibly, how do we authorize people? How do we unauthorize? If someone quits, what do we go about to get them out of the system? Also, what if someone unknown comes in? What do we need to do? So we had to look at all that different information. We looked at the basic network setup, identification, authentication, and authorization. There are 3 key components of access control. Identify who it is, authenticate they are who they say they are, and then authorize them to get into the system where they should have access to. We also looked at the physical location. Do we have badges? Is there fences? Is it secure? Do we have cameras? And we'll touch more on that in the upcoming weeks. Let's see, what else have we covered this week? We can look at group access controls through the systems, through the operating systems. We looked at how databases affect our system. And basically, how do we set up identification? Something you have, such as a password, something you are, biometrics, which we're going to go into more detail throughout the class. That was chapter 1. So chapter 2, we looked at the risk. So what is risk? Risk it's basically a fact of life. There's no such thing as being risk-free. Even the most mundane activity, such as walking, has risk in it. So risk is the probability of something happening. We're going to be under an attack. So we have to determine what is our value of our data, how do we protect it, and how much is that worth. Like I said in the past, we don't want to spend $10 million to protect $1 million worth of data. So there has to be a trade-off. We know there's going to be a risk. We know someone might try to get in. But we have to defend it at what we're going to do. The discussion questions and papers. What's the difference between threats and vulnerabilities? So we looked at that. We looked at what social engineering was and the different lengths and passwords. How many characters should we have on there and how long it takes to break a password. So we should have that. We looked at some hashing. We just mentioned that briefly. So what are some strategies? Risk avoidance, risk acceptance. How are we going to deal with risk? Let's see, what else do we look at? What happens when someone wants a remote access? We looked at having a VPN to make sure that anything that they tunnel through doesn't get, anything that they do doesn't get manipulated, so it keeps it safe. But basically we looked at risk, potential risks. How do we prioritize them? Which ones do we have to come about? And we looked at just a whole bunch of other stuff in general. So hopefully you did everything okay. Like I said, I usually get the papers graded within a few days. And again, please check the rubrics for both the discussion questions and the paper. You're going to see exactly what I'm going to have. You don't want to give up useless points for not putting a title page on or forgetting your citations. So get in the habit of putting those on. So have a wonderful day. Remember to smile.